She teleported into my shower, looked me over, smirked, and stayed. Marcus Chen had exactly 12 minutes left in his shower cycle when reality decided to violate several laws of physics in his bathroom. One moment he was alone, humming an old Earth song about purple rain, and the next moment there was a 7-foot-tall alien woman standing 3 feet away from him, water droplets cascading off skin that shimmered like polished amethyst under starlight. Marcus did what any reasonable human would do. He yelped, slipped on the wet floor, caught himself on the temperature control panel, and somehow managed to spray both of them with ice-cold water before slamming his hand on the emergency shutoff. In the sudden silence, broken only by the drip of water and his own ragged breathing, he stared at the intruder who had materialized in his private shower aboard the cargo hauler Resilient Dream. She was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Her skin held depths of purple and blue that seemed to shift with each breath, and luminescent markings traced patterns along her shoulders and down all 4 of her arms. 4 arms. Marcus's brain helpfully supplied that detail as if it was the most important thing to focus on right now. Her face was distinctly humanoid, but refined in ways that made humans look like rough drafts, with large eyes that held colors he didn't have names for. Those eyes were currently scanning him from head to toe with an expression that could only be described as clinical amusement. Then she smirked, actually smirked at him, standing there in his shower like she owned the place. "You have got to be kidding me," Marcus muttered, grabbing a towel and wrapping it around himself while trying to maintain whatever dignity a naked human could maintain in front of an alien intruder. "The ship's AI is supposed to alert me to boarding attempts. Unauthorized life forms, literally anything that isn't supposed to be on my ship." Approximately 4.3 seconds before my arrival, I detected the warning signal and accelerated my transportation sequence. "Is this not a common ability among your species?" She looked genuinely curious, one of her 4 hands reaching out to touch the shower wall as if examining the construction. "No, it is definitely not a common ability among humans. We tend to use doors like civilized people." Marcus took a deep breath, trying to get his heart rate under control. 6 months alone in space had not prepared him for this. "Okay, I'm going to ask this once calmly. Who are you, and why are you in my shower?" "I have been observing your species for the past 4 standard weeks, as part of a comprehensive evaluation for potential integration into galactic society. And you chose to make it in my shower. Arxian protocol dictates that proper evaluation of a species requires observation in moments of complete vulnerability. Your bathing rituals provide an ideal scenario for assessment of true character without the interference of social performance." "You mean you wanted to see how I'd react to someone teleporting in while I was naked and defenseless? Instead, you made a verbal comment about my timing and expressed concern for alerting protocols." She moved closer, and Marcus was acutely aware that he was still just wearing a towel while she seemed completely unbothered by the situation. "This is outside predicted parameters." "Fascinating." But then again, he'd been hauling cargo through deep space for 8 years, and if that had taught him anything, it was that the universe had a sense of humor and humans were rarely the ones telling the jokes. "Right," he said finally. "Okay, first contact in my shower, sure." "Why not? Do you want some coffee or something? Because I need coffee for this conversation." "Which is pretty much all the time, honestly." Marcus moved past her carefully, very aware of the limited space in the small bathroom. "I'm going to get dressed. You're welcome to stay there and judge my vulnerability or whatever, or you can wait in the galley." "Your choice." Then she nodded once and stepped out of the shower, water sliding off her skin without seeming to actually wet it. 20 minutes later, Marcus sat in his small galley with a steaming mug of coffee while Velsara perched on the bench across from him, examining her own cup with 2 of her hands, while the other 2 rested on the table. She hadn't accepted any clothing, apparently unconcerned with the concept, though she'd politely allowed him to get dressed. "The Concordat has been monitoring Earth for approximately 6 of your months," she explained, still studying the coffee like it might explode. "Our initial assessments indicated that humanity is technologically emerging but culturally volatile. Every simulation we have run shows that first contact with your species results in catastrophic outcomes within 3 generations." "Catastrophic how?" "Do you know what the Kresh swarm is?" The Concordat exists partially to prevent such occurrences from happening again. Rapid expansion, aggressive resource acquisition, inability to maintain stable diplomatic relations, and most concerning, an unpredictable nature that defies standard behavioral modeling. Velsara finally took a small sip of the coffee, and her eyes widened. This beverage is toxic. So you've been watching us, decided we're basically galaxy-ending monsters in waiting, and your response was to teleport into my shower. Standard protocol suggests 50 random samples across your population. However, after reviewing your species' historical records and current global communications, I determined that individual study would be more efficient. You were selected because your psychological profile suggested statistical average for human behavior patterns. You're going to teleport back and tell your bosses that I didn't try to kill you, so maybe we're not so bad. I am officially requesting extended observation time. I have filed the appropriate diplomatic paperwork with the Concordat. You are now officially humanity's first contact scenario, Marcus Chen. Congratulations. Unless you refuse, in which case I will respect your decision and find another human subject, though it would be inefficient and require additional time. Marcus thought about the next 6 months of travel, alone, or with an alien observer who could teleport and thought coffee was toxic. He thought about humanity hanging in the balance based on whether some galactic committee thought they were too dangerous to talk to. He thought about how absolutely bizarre his life had just become. "All right," he said finally, "you can stay, but we're establishing some ground rules, starting with knocking before entering rooms, even if you can teleport." Though I should mention that Orcsian biology does not have the same privacy requirements regarding. We're definitely establishing ground rules. 3 weeks had passed since Velsara had teleported into Marcus's life, and the cargo hauler had become an unlikely laboratory for interspecies understanding. She shadowed him everywhere, taking notes on a holographic device that appeared and disappeared from thin air. She documented how he maintained the ship's aging systems with duct tape and creative profanity. She recorded his habit of talking to the ship's AI like it was his best friend. She even observed him singing loudly and terribly to music from Earth's 21st century, a phenomenon she described in her reports as both acoustically unpleasant and emotionally significant. Marcus had grown accustomed to her constant presence, though it still startled him when she would materialize in a doorway or suddenly appear in the co-pilot seat while he was running diagnostics. She asked endless questions about everything. Why did he eat 3 full meals a day instead of efficient nutrient paste? Why did he keep a small plant in the galley that required daily watering and served no functional purpose? Why did he spend 2 hours repairing a coffee maker when replacing it would have been faster? Because it still works, Marcus had explained, elbow-deep in the machine's components. And it's been with me for 5 years. You don't just throw away things that have been reliable. Marcus was reviewing cargo manifests in the bridge when the ship's AI announced incoming vessels. 3 small fighters, outdated models from the frontier wars, approaching fast with weapons hot. Pirates were common enough in this sector, usually looking for easy targets hauling valuable goods. Marcus's cargo was agricultural equipment, hardly worth the fuel they'd spend chasing him, but pirates weren't always known for their strategic thinking. "Resilient Dream, cut your engines and prepare to be boarded," came the transmission, rough and distorted. "Comply and you won't be harmed. We can be clear of the ship in seconds." "This is my ship." The Resilient Dream wasn't built for combat, but she was built tough, and Marcus knew every inch of her systems. It's about not letting bullies take what's yours just because they think they can. Marcus waited until it was within 100 meters, then vented Cargo Bay 2 directly at them. The sudden explosion of atmosphere and debris forced the fighter to veer off, narrowly avoiding a collision with a shipping container full of irrigation equipment. "Warning shot," Marcus announced calmly over the open channel. "Next one won't miss." That's kind of humanity's whole thing. He vented Cargo Bay 3, creating a debris field between his ship and the attackers. "We don't like to lose. We're going to tear that ship apart. Your fighters get hit by one of those. You'll be breathing vacuum before you can scream about it." But Pirates survived by knowing when a fight wasn't worth it, and something in his voice must have sold the lie. "This isn't over," the pirate captain finally growled. Yeah, it is, Marcus replied, his voice hard. Because you're going to turn around and find easier prey, and I'm going to forget this ever happened. We both walk away. That's the deal. Then the three fighters banked away, their engines flaring as they accelerated back toward the asteroid field they'd emerged from. Marcus didn't relax until they disappeared from sensors completely. Incredible, Velsara said quietly. You defended your vessel using no weapons, minimal resources, and tactical deception. The statistical probability of success was less than 12%. We've had a lot of practice. She moved to the cargo bay to take it privately, and when she returned, her luminescent markings were pulsing in patterns Marcus had learned meant she was agitated. Everything okay? He asked, stirring eggs and tomatoes in a pan. Velsara was quiet for a long moment. Then she sat down at the small table, all four hands clasped in front of her. Marcus, I need to tell you something. The Concordat has made a decision about humanity. That doesn't sound good. In 48 hours, an enforcement fleet will arrive at your solar system's edge and establish a permanent quarantine. No contact in or out. Humanity will be isolated indefinitely. We haven't done anything. You question authority constantly. You create art about rebellion and celebrate historical figures who defied established orders. Velsara's voice was steady, but her markings flickered rapidly. The Concordat has existed for 2 million years in relative stability. You represent chaos. I submitted my observations of you, detailed accounts of human behavior that contradicted the models. But I am one specialist among thousands, and my report was classified as compromised due to extended individual exposure. Somewhere out there, people were deciding that humanity wasn't worth the risk of meeting. That 7 billion people should be imprisoned on their own planet because they might possibly someday cause problems for a galactic government that had been doing things the same way since before humans had even evolved. This is wrong, he said quietly. I know, Velsara's voice was soft. I have been considering options. There is one possibility, though it carries significant risk. Cross has served the Concordat for 3,000 years and has personally overseen 47 first contact scenarios. They have absolute authority in this sector. Velsara stood, moving to stand beside him at the viewport. If we could reach Cross directly, present a case for humanity before the quarantine is established, there is a small chance the decision could be reconsidered. How small a chance? Less than 8%. Marcus laughed, and it sounded slightly unhinged even to his own. Ears. 8%, that's better odds than I had with those pirates. You would be risking your life to speak for your entire species with no authority to do so. So basically, Marcus said, meeting her strange, colorful eyes, we'd be doing something completely insane with terrible odds of success to fight against an unjust system that's already decided we're not worth listening to? Precisely, Marcus thought about Earth. About the billions of people who had no idea they were about to be cut off from the stars forever. About humanity's messy, chaotic, beautiful history of people who'd stood up when the smart move was to stay down. About every underdog story and impossible victory that made humans keep trying even when logic said to quit. He thought about Velsara, who'd been sent to observe humanity and had somehow decided they were worth defending, even at the cost of everything she'd built in her own civilization. All right, he said. Let's go commit some treason, but first you're eating this shakshuka. Because if I'm going to convince an ancient alien admiral that humanity deserves a chance, I'm doing it on a full stomach. You are the most statistically improbable human I could have encountered. Velsara had accessed the enforcement fleet's trajectory data through her Concordat credentials, which would be revoked the moment her superiors realized what she was doing. They had roughly 36 hours before Admiral Cross's ships reached the designated quarantine perimeter around Earth's solar system. Marcus sat in the bridge, staring at the quantum broadcast array they'd cobbled together from his ship's communications system, parts cannibalized from 3 different cargo containers, and what Velsara described as highly illegal Orcsian signal amplification technology that she definitely wasn't supposed to have outside official channels. This is either going to work, or it's going to announce our location to every ship within 5 light years, Marcus said, running final diagnostics on the array. Those are not mutually exclusive outcomes. Velsara replied, her 4 hands moving across holographic controls that floated in the air around her. The Concordat will detect this transmission immediately. We will have minutes at most before they attempt to jam our signal or dispatch intercept vessels. Here goes everything. Marcus had written and rewritten his opening words a dozen times before settling on the most human approach possible. "Hello," he began, his voice carrying across the void to ships and stations scattered throughout the sector. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm a human from Earth, and I just figured out we're not alone in the universe, which is pretty amazing, honestly. I'm trying to reach Admiral Cross of the Concordat Enforcement Fleet. I understand you're on your way to my home system, and I was hoping we could talk before you get there." And then, cutting through the noise, a single directed response on a secure channel. "This is Admiral Cross." The voice was unlike anything Marcus had heard before, crystalline and resonant, like wind chimes made of starlight. "You are either remarkably brave or catastrophically foolish, human, possibly both. You have 3 minutes to explain this unauthorized contact before I have your signal traced and terminated." He'd practiced this conversation in his head, trying to find the right words to convince an ancient being who'd seen civilizations rise and fall. In the end, he decided that pretending to be something he wasn't would defeat the whole purpose. 3 minutes works," Marcus said. "Admiral, I know the Concordat has decided humanity is too dangerous for contact. I've seen the models, read the predictions, and honestly, I can't promise we won't be chaotic or unpredictable or difficult to work with. But I wanted you to hear from an actual human before you lock us away forever. What could you possibly tell me that would alter mathematical certainties? What makes them laugh?" Marcus found himself relaxing into the conversation, treating it less like a formal negotiation and more like talking to another person. "Your models can predict what we might do, but they can't tell you who we are. Do you have a favorite food, Admiral? I am particularly drawn to crystallized lithium formations from my home world's northern ranges." "It's part of who you are." Marcus leaned forward, warming to his topic. "Humans are messy. We make mistakes constantly. Our history is full of conflicts and bad decisions and times we nearly destroyed ourselves. But we also keep choosing to be better. Every single day, billions of people wake up and try to be kinder than they were yesterday. We fail a lot, but we keep trying. But sentiment does not overcome statistical probability. Your species will expand, conflict with established systems, and create instability. This is mathematical certainty. Because I've been living with one of your people for 3 weeks now, Velsara of the Arxian Concordat. She teleported into my shower, scared the hell out of me, and I didn't attack her. I made her coffee. She's been studying me like a lab specimen, and instead of resenting it, we've become friends. That wasn't in your models either, was it? The presence of Specialist Velsara aboard your vessel is documented, Cross acknowledged, though her current status is under review for protocol violations. She was supposed to observe and report. Instead, she's risking everything because she thinks the Concordat is making a mistake. That should tell you something. A concerning data point regarding human influence. Because we might change things. The Concordat has maintained galactic stability for 2 million years. We have achieved this through careful management, predictable systems, and established hierarchies. Your species represents fundamental uncertainty. Yes, you might integrate peacefully. You might also revolutionize our systems in ways that create chaos. We cannot predict you, Marcus Chen of Earth, and what we cannot predict, we cannot safely incorporate. You're afraid of what we might do to your perfect system. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been playing it safe for so long that you've forgotten how to take chances on anything new. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration bleeding into his voice. Look, I get it. Change is scary. The unknown is terrifying. But locking us away forever isn't caution, Admiral. It's just giving up on the possibility that something good might happen. Admiral Cross, this is Specialist Velsara, identification code 77 Alpha Epsilon. I am submitting an official challenge to the quarantine classification under Concordat Law, Section 42, Clause 18. I have spent extensive time with this human and others of his species through remote observation. The models are fundamentally flawed. I am within my rights as a first contact evaluator to present contradictory evidence. Velsara's 4 hands moved rapidly, uploading data directly to Cross's ship. I have documented 347 instances of human behavior that directly contradict threat assessment models. Most significantly, humans possess a cultural framework that does not exist in any of the 47 species currently in the Concordat. They call it second chances. They forgive. Velsara's voice carried a note of wonder. They have a saying, everyone deserves a second chance. This philosophy permeates their culture at every level. They do not write off uncertainty as automatic threat. They see it as potential for growth. He thought about every friendship he'd rebuilt after arguments, every time someone had given him another opportunity after he'd messed up, every story of redemption and second chances that humans told themselves. The Concordat seeks stability, Velsara continued. But stability without growth is stagnation. Humanity is unpredictable because they are still evolving, still changing, still becoming. That is not a weakness, Admiral. That is precisely what a 2-million-year-old civilization needs. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat, the hum of the ship's systems, the quiet whisper of recycled air. Everything humanity might become hung in the balance, waiting for an ancient crystalline being to decide if they were worth the risk. Finally, Cross spoke. You have given me much to consider. I am not prepared to lift the quarantine at this time. However, Cross continued, I am also not prepared to enforce it immediately. Marcus barely dared to breathe as Admiral Cross's words hung in the space between hope and despair. Velsara's luminescent markings had frozen mid-pulse, all 4 of her hands suspended over her holographic controls. What does that mean exactly? Marcus asked carefully, afraid that pushing too hard might shatter whatever thin possibility had just opened up. It means, Marcus Chen of Earth, that you have accomplished something I have not witnessed in 3,000 years of service. You have made me uncertain. Cross's crystalline voice carried what might have been amusement or possibly irritation. It was hard to tell. Uncertainty is not a state I enjoy, but Specialist Velsara raises valid points. Perhaps the Concordat has become too comfortable with our models, too reliant on predictions rather than actual observation. I will propose an alternative to the Concordat Council. A probationary period, 50 of your Earth years with limited, controlled contact. Your species will be assigned cultural liaisons who will facilitate carefully monitored exchanges. If humanity proves capable of peaceful integration during this time, full contact protocols may be established. If not, the quarantine will be enforced permanently. Admiral, 50 years is insufficient for proper cultural integration with a species as complex as humanity. I would recommend at minimum 100 years, with expanded contact permissions after the first 25. Despite the fact that you have violated approximately 17 different protocols in the last 12 hours alone. I have learned that sometimes the rules designed to protect us actually prevent us from seeing clearly. My time with Marcus has taught me that rigidity is not the same as strength. She was fighting for his entire species while simultaneously admitting she'd broken her own government's laws. That took a special kind of courage. Admiral, Marcus said, drawing Cross's attention back to him, whatever timeline you decide, I have one request. Can it include people like me? Regular humans, I mean. Not just politicians or scientists or people who are trying to represent all of humanity. Just normal people having normal conversations with whoever wants to talk to us. Not through official statements or carefully prepared presentations, but through the small stuff. Sharing meals, terrible jokes, stories about your day. That's how Velsara figured out the models were wrong. She didn't just observe me like a specimen. She lived alongside me. She saw me burn dinner and sing badly and fix things with duct tape. She saw me scared and saw me stubborn and saw me try to do the right thing even when it was hard. I'm suggesting that's the only way you'll actually understand us. Because humanity isn't our leaders or our best scientists. It's all of us, messy and contradictory and trying our best. You want to know if we're dangerous. Then talk to the cargo hauler, the teacher, the farmer, the engineer. Talk to people who are just living their lives and see if we're really the threat your models say we are. Marcus could almost feel cross-thinking, weighing possibilities against millennia of established procedure. Your proposal is highly irregular, the Admiral finally said. But these are irregular circumstances. Very well. I will present the Council with a modified integration plan. 50 years probationary period. Initial contact will include what you call regular people alongside official diplomatic channels. Specialist Velsara, given your extensive exposure to humanity and your apparent willingness to disregard standard protocols, I am assigning you as the primary cultural liaison to Earth. Congratulations on your promotion and effective exile. Your earlier protocol violations are hereby classified as necessary field adaptations. I am too old to waste energy on paperwork. There was definitely amusement now. Marcus Chen, you will be contacted by Concordat representatives within the next solar rotation. I suggest you prepare your planet's leadership for some very surprising news. Try not to cause a global panic. Cross out. We did it, he said between gasps. We actually did it. We just changed the entire future of humanity with a jury-rigged comm system and a conversation about favorite foods. We violated numerous laws, committed treason against established authority, and convinced a 3,000-year-old military commander to question 2 million years of Concordat policy. Very human of us. When I told you about the quarantine, you could have blamed me for your species' potential imprisonment, yet you called me your friend to Admiral Cross. Why? You could have observed me from a distance, reported your findings, and never let me know you existed. But you showed yourself. You stayed in my shower even though I was freaking out. You drank terrible coffee and listened to my awful singing and asked 1,000 questions because you actually wanted to understand. You weren't just doing a job. You cared about getting it right. That meant something. It's about recognizing when someone is willing to stand up for what's right even when it costs them everything. You did that for people you'd never met, for a species you were supposed to be evaluating from a distance. If that's not worth trusting, I don't know what is. The Concordat will provide resources, but I will need a human guide, someone who understands both the chaos and the potential of your species. You have a cargo delivery to complete, but after that, she spread her 4 hands in a gesture that might have been an Arxian shrug. I will need assistance navigating your world. And you appear to have a talent for explaining human concepts in ways that even the Concordat can understand. He thought about returning to the usual routes, the familiar isolation of deep space. Then he thought about Earth about to make contact with the galaxy, about billions of people who had no idea their world was about to change forever, about the chance to help guide that change in the right direction. I'll need to talk to some people back home, he said. Government types are going to want to be involved, and there will be scientists and diplomats, and probably 1,000 people who think they know better than a cargo hauler how to handle first contact. Someone needs to make sure you don't teleport into the wrong person's shower and start an interstellar incident. He grinned. Plus, I'm kind of curious to see what happens when humanity meets the galaxy. Might as well have a front row seat. The Concordat will never be the same after this. And possibility is what being human is all about. 50 years to show that their chaos and unpredictability and stubborn refusal to accept limitations could be a strength rather than a threat. It wouldn't be easy. There would be mistakes and misunderstandings and probably a few disasters along the way. But that was okay. Humans were good at learning from disasters. They'd been doing it for their entire history. Velsara had moved to stand beside him at the viewport, watching the stars streak past as they accelerated toward Earth. Marcus, I have been compiling data for my official report to the Concordat Council. I need one final piece of information for the record. The single quality that makes your species worth the risk we are taking. We see people, he said simply. Not threats or statistics or predicted outcomes, just people. Even when they're completely different from us, even when they scare us, even when every logical analysis says we should be cautious, we still see the person underneath and wonder if maybe, just maybe, they could be a friend. It's irrational and inefficient and has probably caused us as many problems as it's solved. But it's also why I'm standing here with you right now, heading home to introduce my entire planet to the galaxy. We never stop believing that connection is possible. That's our strength. That's what makes us human, though I suspect the Council will find it as baffling as I first did. We do.